was a rumble in the jungle. Once I heard Dad was outside again counting birds, and Mama plugged in a nightlight, and I saw the queen of the world.
Welcome to the Golden Hour Birth Podcast. I am your co-host Liz.
And I'm your co-host Natalie, and tonight we have Tia from North Carolina on. Tia is a photographer and money coaching with women primarily. I'll let her explain more about that. But Tia, thanks so much for coming on. We're happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to see other women right now.
Love it. So if you want to go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself and your family, and we can go from there.
So I am a military spouse it'll be 15 years next year. And I have two beautiful babies. They're not babies anymore. One is 19 and one is 13. And yes, I'm an entrepreneur. I started off as a photographer, a portrait photographer, and branding photographer for women entrepreneurs, which led me into money coaching for women, because that really helped me and my business really make money. And I wanted to help more and more women grow in business and not get so frustrated. So that's what I do. And I love being a mom. I've wanted to be a mom my whole life.
That's awesome. So if you want to kind of go ahead and go into just finding out that you were pregnant with your first, and then what their pregnancy was like.
Okay, so I was married before. So she is from my previous marriage, and we wanted to have a baby and tried, because I'm a numbers person. And I was like, you know what? And this is before all the things happened with Columbus Day. But as I grew up, so I'm in my 40s now, I wanted my child to have a long weekend birthday, and I timed it out so she would be born around. That was my first try, and it worked. And finding out, we planned this. And then the moment I found out and took the test, I was like, what did I just do? All of a sudden I understood morning sickness. I understood all of the things, because I just altered my life. You can't go back.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was excited. I was just, because obviously I wanted to do it. But that moment when you realized, this was a life-altering decision.
Mm-hmm.
With her, the only things that I can say about the pregnancy was very textbook. I only threw up once, and that is because I had food poisoning, but I felt ill most of the time. At the beginning, and I was exhausted, and I was sure I was having a boy, and then they said, no, it's a girl. I was like, are you sure? It was the only reason why I knew she was alive. Every day she would have the hiccups, so I felt her. I was like, she's still there, she's still good. So fun fact about me is I wanted to be a midwife way back in the day, and I studied everything about pregnancy, and I loved all the things. I kept a journal. I was very type A about pregnancy. And I remember craving colors. I wanted everything pastel, and I wanted lobster and strawberries. It was very bougie pregnancy. And,
I love it.
I had her on her due date naturally, woke up at 4 in the morning, and I was like, oh, this is real. And then I started throwing up for sure. And we had to drive an hour. I was up in New York, and it was beautiful. It was fall. So the drive there was gorgeous, except every bump was terrible. And I had a midwife because I had a pretty normal pregnancy. I was 25. And I wanted everything natural. I didn't take Tums. I didn't take anything. I was super paranoid about everything. But the day that I was in labor, I was like, can I chew a baby Tylenol? And then I immediately threw it up. So that was pointless. And I didn't have my water break until right before I had her. And then I got in the birthing stool. And the first push, I was like, I'm not doing this for very long. And my husband at the time was behind me, and I was down on the floor in this birthing stool. And he was wrapped around me, and they were like, okay, now push. And my mom and my grandmother in the room, and all the people. And I was like, I can't. And they're like in unison, yes, you can. And I was like, no, I mean, I can't move my arms because he was squeezing me so tight. Like he would push when I was pushing, but I had her out in 22 minutes. I was like, I am not doing this. Like I screamed for my mom and she came over and she tapped me on the shoulder and she's like, I can't do anything for you. Like, thanks. And then I remember laying on the bed and I was looking at her and she was huge to me. I was like, how the heck did that just come out of me? She laid her on my belly and I was like, oh, what? Like, it was so euphoric. The feeling of being done. It was the best high I've ever had in my life right after, until you do the afterbirth, which no one talks to you about. Mm-hmm. That sucked. But when I saw her little face and I thought, oh my gosh, how is she mine? She is so beautiful. And that's when, so I was bullied growing up and I was told that I was ugly and all of the things. And I really believed it until I saw her and I saw me and I was like, she is gorgeous. I just didn't know how pretty I was until I saw her. Aww. And that was beautiful. And after I gave birth and I did the breastfeeding, I breastfed for almost a year and a half with her. And it was rough just because the latching, and she was like a shark. Like I would have bloody nipples. It was rough, but I did it. And she looked like a little person, like this little muscular thing. And she was 7 pounds, 10 ounces. So very normal, like very average, but she was beautiful. And we had a lot of tragic things happen right after and during that time. So like I said, we were living up in New York and my sister was pregnant at the same time and she had her daughter a month later. So they were 6 weeks apart and she looked like a normal baby, like Buddha belly, the whole thing. And mine looked like a soldier came out. Like she was just so muscular. But my husband's best friend had committed suicide and I had just had my daughter and was very distracted by that. So I had figured it out that day that something bad was going to happen. And I was going to talk to my husband that night because I could just feel it. But pregnancy, I was distracted. And I always felt like, I wonder if I wasn't, would I have been able to figure it out earlier? And then a month later, we needed to get out of that town because it was a small town we grew up in. My brother lived in South Carolina, so we moved down there. And then as we were traveling down, mind you, I had one dog, 2 cats, ferret, I think, ferret then. Oh, it was nuts. In November, so there was snowstorms. It was awful. My grandmother died on the way down. And then his dad got diagnosed with lymphoma a month later. So we had a lot of tragic things happen in a short amount of time, becoming new parents. And we kind of went into we're just friends zone because I became his mother. Like I was taking care of him and I was taking care of our kid. And so we didn't work out. We're still friends because we went through all that together, but our roles switched so drastically with all the trauma, and we were young. We didn't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
So also I had at my 6-week appointment, they found out that I had a thyroid issue and we were already down south. So I ended up at Duke to check my thyroid and they said that I had Graves' disease, which gives you very much anxiety. I would have like panic and like shakes and like just afraid of everything. And especially when you have a child and a little girl at that, like all of a sudden everything's dangerous in the world. Like the whole world got small for me. And so we moved around North Carolina a few times before we decided to divorce. And we still lived together. And I was dating outside of that, and he was dating. And that's when I met my future husband. I in the middle of my divorce, and my ex-husband would say I traded him for a younger version because my ex-husband is 4 years older than me, and my new husband is 5 years younger than me. Like there's like a 9-year gap, but they got along great. They would go to the movies together. Like that was funny, but I couldn't have asked for a better like combined family kind of thing. And when I met my husband, he was younger. So he was 24 at the time. And my daughter was 3 going on 4 when we met. And he was in the reserves. And I didn't know that because I never wanted to marry a military man. I was like, I'm not about that life. And then, within a month of meeting him, he got called to active duty to go to Iraq. So our first year together was writing letters and on the phone talking and hearing, like I could hear the war going on behind him, and it was very stressful. He came home halfway through. They get a 2-week vacation, and he asked me to marry him. And I said yes. And at first I was like, how do you say no? Like, what if he dies? Like, I'm going to look like such a jerk. But no, I did really love him. There was something about him and I when we met, and it couldn't have taken place any other time because there was no way I was going to look at a younger man like that. Like, no. And I was very picky because as a mom meeting a new guy, like you have to be special. Like you have to either want that role or like we're just hooking up and I'm leaving. Like that's it, right? So truth be told. And I just figured I was never gonna be married. I was never gonna find that. And he popped up in my life at the right time. And as soon as he came home, I was considered pregnant the day he landed on U.S. soil. It was 2 weeks later, but you know how they do and we had already planned on getting married in July. Like we had already planned all that. And I was angry because I wanted a April baby. Like I said, I plan everything. So he was a March baby and I was mad, but you know, it happens. And he went active duty and we got married and we moved to Fort Bragg. So we got local, and I was happy about that because my daughter's father. And we were here for 7 years. So we had a blended family growing up. And he is actually my son's godfather. So, yeah. And so with that pregnancy, I was already mad that I got pregnant without like immediately and couldn't plan. And I remember I took the test because I couldn't stand certain smells. And my friend was like, are you pregnant? And I was like, but I've always had a super nose. And I took it. I was like, great, I'm pregnant. And I feel so bad about that because it was his like first blood child. Like he considers my daughter his, but he was like, yay. And I'm like, man, now I have to move being pregnant. Like I was so mad. And while we were moving, it was a month later, I was sick. I could feel my thyroid getting overactive. I couldn't lower my heart rate. And I didn't have a doctor yet or anything. And I knew something was wrong or different. I knew it was me. And I was like, I feel like I'm going to die. And I remember laying on the couch multiple days, just trying to get my heart rate down. And I could only get it to like 95 on a good day. And I was super scared. And we found out we were having a boy, and I was angry. And I was angry the whole time. It was probably the testosterone, but he turned out to be a mama's boy, just so you know. He's my baby. And I started having hard contractions at 9 weeks on. It was not Braxton Hicks because I knew the difference from being pregnant before. So I was constantly worried I was going to have a miscarriage, which was a high risk of Graves' disease. And I felt like I wasn't gaining enough weight. I felt like I just felt like stuff was wrong until the last, I almost said semester, last trimester.
Can you tell me like what is Graves' disease? I don't really
Okay,
know
so
anything about
it's
it.
hyperthyroid. It's where it's an autoimmune disease, and they usually come in pairs where you have extra thyroid. So you get panic attacks, you sweat a lot, you're shaky, you have high anxiety, you can't gain weight. It's awful.
Mhm.
It's awful. So like the opposite of that is Hashimoto's, I believe. And that's low thyroid, which is very, very common in women. And that's like the depressive. So I was like complete opposite of that.
I
And
have hypothyroid,
right.
and it's never been to Hashimoto's, but like I feel that it could possibly be like in the future, just because my sister and everything. But yeah, like my thyroid is very, very underactive. Like there's nothing there.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
It dictates everything in your life.
Yeah.
So, and you're probably exhausted all the time, like feeling sluggish. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I just got diagnosed with like I'm anemic this pregnancy too. So I was like feeling so exhausted, and I'm like, why does it feel like I've been hit by a train? And I was like, my thyroid has to be off. My thyroid was looking great. In this pregnancy, my thyroid's been like up and down, up and down.
Oh yeah.
So it's been a headache. And then they said that I was anemic, and I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense now too.
Yeah, for sure. There's a liquid iron.
Yeah.
That, and then make sure you're taking vitamin C as well.
Okay, that's good to know.
And because it helps absorb the iron.
Oh, good to know.
And
Thank
B vitamins that helps transfer the iron into the cells as well. So,
Thank you.
yes.
Good info.
I have a lot of medical issues. I'm a pseudo doctor now. So with the hyperthyroid, you get exhausted because your heart is racing all the time and your body's using all this energy. So you're also exhausted, just like, but for different reasons, or different cause rather. But it's very similar. And I am triggered by pregnancy. My thyroid is, and that's why I chose never to go on medication, because I was like, it went back to normal slowly. Because once you get pregnant, your body is like, ugh, with the hormones. And I was like, well, to me, that's just how my body reacts. I'm not giving medical advice on that. I'm just saying, like, that's what I chose to do. And I chose not to go on anything while pregnant because they couldn't promise a healthy baby. So I took my chances. And also iodine. I cut out iodine. I switched to sea salt and tried to stay away from anything with iodine, because that should help you uptake that thyroid if it's low. And so I was due March 15th, which was a good number for me. I like zeros and fives. A little neurotic.
Me too.
Okay. And I had friends come into town, and we had a barbecue, and it was like a random Wednesday night. It was the 11th. I was like, I'm not due. I had my first on her due date. Like, everything should be fine. And I was cooking shrimp scampi. We were singing rock band. Like, I was literally singing, and I was still having the same contractions. And if I walked too much, they would like amp up, and then I'd sit down and they would go away. So I just thought that was happening. And my friends were like, you sure you want us to leave? Because they were 2 hours away. I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. I'll let you know if anything happens. But like, I was talking through the contractions because I was used to them. And every night I would have my cottage cheese because it helped with the heartburn. It had to be live active cottage cheese. And my husband, he had always said, oh, we're going to go to the hospital and it'll take hours. I told him, like, it's usually that. So that night, and I told him he wasn't allowed to drink beer or anything, but I allowed him to have one beer that day because we were having friends over. And that night, they all leave. I have my cottage cheese. I'm laying in bed and I'm like, I feel like I have to go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom and I was like, maybe we should go get checked out. So I am on next to the crib, like doing my swaying back and forth, stretching my hips, and my water breaks and my pants fall all the way to the floor. I was like, oh crap. And I'm just waddling to the toilet. And all I'm thinking is they're going to make me have this baby like within 24 hours. And if he doesn't come, they're going to cut me open. Like that's what's going on in my head. And I waddle to the toilet and he calls his mom and tells her, and she was like, I already took a Tylenol PM. I can't drive. And hangs up. And I was like, I need a bucket. I'm going to throw up. And he gets me that. And then he's like, can you make it to the car? And I feel down there and the baby's head is there. And I was like, I'm not making it anywhere. Could you call 911, please?
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
And I literally stood up, 2 pushes, sat back down. I had grabbed him and twisted him. I randomly read the chapter twice on if you have to give birth by yourself. So I knew what to do. And it was like second nature. And I just put him on there and I was like, oh, he's got blonde hair. I have very dark hair. My daughter has very dark hair and my husband has blonde, but I didn't know if he would. And he did. And my husband looked like a deer in headlights. He just stood there watching me do this. And he's like, all of a sudden he snapped back in and he's like, is he breathing? Like he started freaking out and he gets a towel and I had the umbilical cord and I had lifted it up and did the whole thing. And because that's what you're supposed to do. And I pinched it just so no blood would go back and called 911 and the ambulance came and the firefighters and everybody comes into my bathroom. And I had a huge bathroom at the time with a stretcher and they're like, oh, he's already here. I was like, yeah. So they put me on and they were like, who wants to cut the cord? They were so happy. And my husband's like, I do. Like, mine. So he cut the cord and they took my blood pressure and they were like, you have the best blood pressure I've ever taken. I can't believe this. So I tried to latch him on as they were taking me to the hospital. And went in and they treated him like he was a crack baby born on the street because I wasn't at the hospital. So they took him and did a bunch of tests. And then I had to do the placenta way late, but I didn't have to have any stitches. Oh, with my daughter, I had to have 2 stitches. Not bad. And with him, nothing. They called it road rash, like where you just stretch out. And that's what they said. I was like, okay. And I remember going to my 6-week appointment and I said, since you didn't do anything, can I get money back for this? No, you can't. It's like a contract thing. Like, so just so you know, even though I did all the work at the end, it didn't really hit me until we got home 2 days later and I was showering and I washed my belly and I was like, oh my gosh, I just had my kid by myself. Holy, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But it was the easier recovery because I wasn't in anguish of hours of like strolling around. Like with my daughter, I felt like I got hit by a truck, like literally. Everything on my body hurt after I had her. And with him, it was so quick that I was just doing normal things that I recovered pretty quickly. So that was a bonus.
Yeah. Did you have like doctor or midwifery care with your son?
Yeah, I had a midwife. That's why, like, you do back then, I don't know what they do now, but you sign like a contract type thing and the insurance pays them for the entire thing. And that's why I was joking with her. I was like, well, do we get some money back for that? Because you pay for the entire pregnancy and delivery at once.
Oh, gotcha. So what did she say when you were saying that you were feeling contractions at 9 weeks?
Nothing really. They were just like, oh.
Did they do more like testing, like stress test or anything like that?
I mean, I did all the normal stuff. I didn't have anything going on. I don't know. It was very strange.
Yeah.
I just thought it was the thyroid stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I will say that he was skinnier than my daughter and the umbilical cord was way tinier. So I was worried about that because he kind of, to me, he looked a little bit sickly. He wasn't, he was okay. He was less than my daughter. He was 6'10", I think. Still full term. He was only 4 days early. So I would consider that okay. And he had never, so my daughter was always on the 95th percentile for height. And my son didn't even get on the chart, like on the height chart until he was like over a year old. Like he was just tiny. So I thought my daughter was going to be tall. So most of her life, I was like, you're going to be taller than us. She made a bet with my husband. Now $50 that she would be taller than him. He's 5'9". We're tiny people. I'm 5'4". And she's my height and she's pissed still. And my son just passed me. So I don't know. He might be taller than all of us. So it's so random. You can't go by those charts, you know?
No, you can't. It's so random.
So how was your like thyroid and Graves' disease after you had him?
Okay, so it was high, but it started going down slowly. And I decided, because I was breastfeeding him as well, and I breastfed him for about 1.5 years as well. And it took about 5 years to get, like from pregnancy until about 5 years to get in the normal range for my thyroid. Yeah.
Did you take anything?
No. Just watched what I ate and was like very just conscious of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been taking levothyroxine my whole life because I was diagnosed like right after birth, and like I'm just at a crazy number now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I've never been this high.
Okay.
They just keep adding. So yeah.
Yeah, that's gotta be hard. I've never had to. That's the other thing too with thyroid medication, is that your thyroid naturally changes every day. So it's hard to figure out like what dose is good for you. And I was like, I am not about to ride that train.
Yeah.
While my body's trying to go back to normal and then adding stuff. That's why I chose not to. I was like, I gave myself, I said, if it's going in the right direction, then I'm not going to do anything. But if it had stayed or done something, then I would have for sure. So I was just like, well, I'll just let my body see what it does. And I got lucky.
Yeah.
With that.
Good.
Unlucky in other things, but you know, win some, lose some.
Exactly. So after your friends left from like you saying that you were in labor, how long was that?
Like an hour. They turned around and came back and got to see me in the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
They were like,
that's wild.
Because it was my maid of honor was there. Like she was like, I missed it. Like she was so mad. But she got to be one of the first ones to hold him. So
That's
it was
sweet.
nice to have them there.
We're almost there. That would have been wild.
Yeah. A house full of people. I'm fine.
I mean, we have pictures of that too. Like I'm posing, I'm singing, I'm doing, because at 9 weeks having contractions, like I was so used to it.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll for sure know. I knew something was up because I was like, it's a little more, but I was like, is it because I'm stressed because I'm hosting a party? Is it because I've been on my feet all day? But I should have known because I did have some start showing. And I was like, but that could happen days ahead.
Yeah.
But still, even I was like, but
I need to see these pictures. So I'll have to ask you for them. And also, like, it's just like so wild how everybody's body is so completely different. Because you were like, I was used to the contractions. Well, like some people, you know, would go to like their 40-week appointment and be like absolutely 0 centimeters dilated.
Yeah.
It's like wild.
Yeah. I mean, Well, I had a doctor's appointment the week before, and I think they checked me. I was like 2
Yeah.
centimeters, but like that's normal in that,
Yeah.
but that's the strange thing about the human body is that it kind of knows what to do on its own. And things can happen so quickly. So I calculated like when they started. So with my daughter, it was textbooks 12 hours. I started at 4 in the morning, 4:30, and I had her at 4:22 in the afternoon. And that was great for me because I got to sleep the night before. I feel so like that was another reason why I was just angry the whole pregnancy for my son because I was like at night and I was like, man, all right, I'll go get checked. Like I was so mad, but I got my wish. I didn't even have to like have him at the hospital. But from start to finish of when I think that I started actual labor, it was about 6 hours. So it was like half the time. And I had talked to my aunt on my father's side, which I tend to medically fall in line with that side of the family. And especially my aunt, I've gotten every disease that she's had. So it's kind of falling in line. But she said every pregnancy, it would half the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would only have like a 3-hour. I would not have time. But it also, my mom too, she had 3. I was the oldest. And with my sister, she was the youngest. She had her in the ambulance. She didn't even get to the hospital either. So,
oh my God.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah. You guys have some bodies that know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And then my sister had a really hard, she didn't get that. My sister had some issues and she ended up having 4 kids. But I knew like with my pregnancy with my son and like my thyroid and getting older, I was like, I don't think my body could do it again. Even though I always wanted to be a mom and I got that. I got my wish and I had a boy and a girl. I couldn't ask for more. So
Yeah.
very blessed. And they're terrific kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, well, I don't think I've said. So she is 19 now. And she's so funny. When she was little, I had her try everything. And the only sport that she was actually good at, because I always wanted to be a dancer. And I was like, she was terrible, like terrible. And I got her into fencing and she was a natural. So she's like, she's into Dungeons and Dragons like her dad, or like Comic-Con, all of that stuff. And then my son, I started him in soccer and all of the things. And he has been in dance since he was 3. He is an amazing dancer. So I got my dancer. It just came in different forms. So
I love that.
It's so funny.
Yeah. My 3-year-old son is in dance right now. And it's so fun.
Yeah. He's loved it. I mean, right now, after middle school, I homeschool now. He was bullied pretty bad. So he's kind of like trying not to be a dancer. And I'm like, you were like blessed and skilled in that. It's learning the balance when you're raising your children of being okay with who you are and exploring all the things. Like it's just so hard. And like I said to you guys earlier, I'll share this little bit of advice because I don't think we were recording at the time. It's hard all the time. It just changes subjects. So, and motherhood and life is just, it's one grief after another. Like when you find out you're pregnant, you're grieving the life that you had. And then once you're not pregnant anymore, you're grieving that you don't have a baby in your belly anymore. And then when they start crawling and you don't have an infant anymore and you don't have a baby anymore. And it's so strange because when I think back to when my son or daughter was a baby breastfeeding, like obviously I can't pick, it's a totally different person. So you grieve that little baby. And fair warning, when they graduate and leave, all of those things that you've gone through and grieved, it's all accumulated into one event when they leave. I didn't think it was going to feel like that because I was trying to prepare. You can't. Like it's just what it's Like it's just something that you can't control, and you just have to go through the motions of feeling it and accepting the cool things of the next level, you know?
Yeah.
You're leveling up.
Yeah.
I'm at level 19 right now.
I have like my nephew graduated high school this past year, and Liz's niece did at the same time. They're in the same class, but like I have like my sister just like ugly crying, like tears. I have pictures of her, and she was an emotional wreck, but I loved it.
Yes. I didn't cry. I was shocked I didn't cry. I didn't cry until, oh God, I don't know. So I told you what happened to me. So my daughter had graduated last summer, and we are a military family, and we had to move at the same time. And she went to basic training the same time. Like a week before we moved, we shipped her out. And then we had the movers come, and then we had to move. And I have ulcerative colitis, which is an autoimmune disease. And I was under a lot of stress. My husband had just got back from Korea. He missed my daughter's senior year. He missed her graduation, all of that. So within a month, he came home, she left, we moved, and I started failing. I started having a flare, and we didn't find housing for about a month. And so I couldn't find a doctor for another month. So I was bleeding constantly, and I became bedridden. And it was the height of COVID for the area that I was in. And the nurses were like, don't go to the hospital. So I stayed home, and I got a blood clot from my belly button all the way down my left leg, and had to go to the hospital, had blood transfusions, had a filter put in, and tons of medications and all the things. And I had a home nurse and home physical therapy to learn how to walk again. And so I was going through all of that as my daughter was going through basic, and I couldn't share that with her because I didn't want to distract her.
Yeah.
So that was the hardest part, because her and I are very, very close.
Yeah.
It's sort of like being a mom, you sacrifice a lot of things and protecting them in certain ways. And I was so scared. Like that made me fight so hard to survive, because I didn't want her to just like all of a sudden mom died, I went away, and that would like leave her with so much trauma. And so I fought really hard, and it worked. So I'm here, and she has now moved. I didn't get to make it to her graduation or anything, but her daddy did, and they FaceTimed me and all of that. So, but she's out in California, and she's coming home in a couple weeks for Christmas. So I can't wait to like hug her. Oh my gosh. She got to come home for Christmas last year after I was a month out of the hospital. And that's when I cried. And my husband took pictures of it, and I ugly cry. Like I just melted into her, because both of our lives had changed so much in such a short amount of time. Like she became a woman. She just went through basic training. She just went out on her own and came home, and I just fought my fight to stay alive. And so like just holding, like she's my first true love, you know, like complete love. So yeah. So,
Guys have gone through a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for telling us.
I know, it's speechless. I am doing so much better, and I'm so happy to be here and to share my story.
Yeah.
And hopefully maybe that'll help somebody else in some way.
Yeah.
You know, if not, it's entertaining.
I mean, like, you know, hearing that again, it just, you know, I'm looking at you from like your face, and I, you know, couldn't even imagine seeing anything like wrong or like the things that you've gone through, but just hearing it again, you're such a fighter, and I'm so glad that you and your daughter like had that moment together to like, come back together after your fights.
Yeah. Yeah. We're both warriors now.
Mhm.
I was surviving and I was a survivor, and now I'm a warrior.
Yeah.
And that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
I don't like to do victim mode. I mean, anything could happen to anyone, and tragedy happens to everyone
Mhm.
at different times and different levels.
Yeah, definitely.
Just want to be an inspiration to people. You
You
too.
are.
Definitely.
I know people can't see me, and I don't know. Like, I feel like I've aged so much in the last couple of years going through this. So can you imagine how good I would look if I didn't? I don't dye my hair anymore. Like, I just look young. I'm very lucky and blessed. But on the inside, I'm deteriorating.
I think you look great.
Yeah.
Fishing for confidence. Yes. But
Well, we'll definitely have to connect your website and Instagram handles on our show notes so people can find out more about you and reach out.
absolutely. I would love that. I do meetups like on Zoom and stuff to connect with people. I love connecting with others. I have a huge network of random people in my life. I've lived all over the country through the military. So if I can't help you, I'll find somebody that can. Thank you so much for having me. You guys
Yeah.
are so light and you look so cozy. You made this very easy. Thank you.
Oh, I'm happy to hear it. And thank you for coming on. And happy we could connect with someone, totally outside Missouri again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out there.
Yeah.
Fun. For
So
sure.
I first started off as a photographer. So I called that time marker photography. So it was marking this time in your life. And then with Legacy Living with Tia was my money coaching. And I combined that into one website as timemarkerlegacy.com. And I'm also a published writer and or author, and I do a lot of things with the military. So that's Tia's Crazy Life. That makes sense. I kind of live up to that. I have tons of stories for probably every subject you can think of. And I have a YouTube, and I have interviews of amazing women and stuff on there too.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome. I love all that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Everybody like, why the heck are they laughing?